Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier and this is Ship Updates. But it's not specific to any one particular ship. And rather, it's a change in 314 that is affecting all ships. CIG is basically starting. They're kind of dipping their toe into the arena of differentiating weapons, truly differentiating weapons. Now, you might say, well, weapons are very different. You know, they sound different, they look different, you know, they fire at different rates. True, there are some outliers, but in general, a lot of the weapons are they're muddled, right? There's not a very clear niche for each weapon, and that is what CIG is looking to develop now. The first stage of this, of course, is they're going to be altering weapon ranges, in some cases pretty heavily. But what CIG is endeavoring to do, what they're looking to do, is they're trying to make, you know, in this particular situation, you know, these weapons would be very strong, whereas these weapons would be very weak. Or in this particular situation, this weapon has a very high rate of fire, but you're going to blow through your ammunition very quickly. Or your capacitor, if it's a more energy-based weapon. I generally agree with what they're trying to do, but the practical side of me, the pragmatist, looks at this and says, you know, it sounds like a great idea on paper, but within the universe of an MMO where you're going out and you're traveling to different locations to do things, having the right weapon for the right job, if you lean into that too much, what you can end up with is a situation where your weapon can't do the job. And what players will gravitate towards naturally is the weapon that kind of blankets the widest spectrum of possible applications, because they don't want to be caught out, you know, 1,000,000 kilometers from, you know, any place where they can get access to a different type of weapon, finding out that they just can't do what they're there to do just because of the nature of their weapon, whether it's the rate of fire, the type of ammunition they're using, if they're using, you know, an ammunition-based weapon, or that it overheats too much. You know, there are many different problems that they may face. It could be simply that the weapon doesn't do enough damage to overcome the shield recharge of a certain target. Now, with that in particular, you know, you're talking about a pretty big target, and yeah, you could of course juke and hide around the turrets of an NPC type ship and use a much smaller ship to destroy them, but you're not really playing it as it's intended. And so that's kind of a balance point to kind of stop those things from happening. You know, like the Gladius taking down the Vanduul King ship because it can hide in the shadow of all the turrets. That sort of thing. But CIG is going to be, you know, kind of dipping their toes into this. They're going to really start looking into this, and it's important that, one, if your favorite weapons get changed, or if your ship changes significantly as a result, don't panic. Don't, you know, sit there and, you know, flip out and go like, oh my god, they ruined my guns, you know, because weapons have received some pretty heavy duty changes over the years. We've seen this before, but you know, we've never really seen, you know, such an effort towards, you know, realistically creating lanes for certain weapons. We have certain differentiation between cannons and, let's say, auto cannons, that sort of thing, but in general, you could make everything kind of work. And so this might be the first time that we step into an area where certain things just do not work for certain applications. And it's going to be interesting to kind of watch how CIG travels down this road and what they come away with. I think that you can kind of create some unique situations, you know, like you can create a high alpha, low rate of fire type ship and go in and just blast certain things, but that will be a very narrow application for certain things. And I think that having that is a good idea, but I would always be very, very cautious, especially in a game where you suffer from, reality, so to speak, where you just can't carry 8 different gun loadouts for your ship on your ship and just swap whatever in whenever you want it. That, when we kind of test this idea next to the practical reality of not being able to swap weapons, that's when we're really going to start to see, what is this idea really worth, and is it really meaningful? It's going to be interesting to watch. Go out there, test your weapons, and certainly if you start to find that your attritions or whatever aren't working the way they should or the way they used to, don't immediately flip out. Kind of look at the ranges, look at power consumption, and start to think, okay, what envelope are they trying to put me in here? And if the envelope that I was in is not what those weapons service anymore, what does service that envelope? It would be a lot better if CIG had a database on their website, and I know you can go to Urkel or whatever, but a database on their website where you could do comparative analysis of individual weapons. So you could look at your ship. I mean, it's great that there are third-party websites that kind of do this for players, but not all players will be aware that those resources are out there. I know it, you know it, but, Johnny Random Citizen doesn't, and that's just par for the course. And so it would be a good idea for CIG to kind of publish these updates somewhere to give us, a full list where we can kind of go like, oh, okay, this changed, that changed. Something that would kind of tie in with ships so we could actually do builds on the website, looking at what the live stats of those weapons are and not having to wait for a third-party website to update their database. That would be a cool thing to have. But it's going to be interesting to watch how things change and to watch how ships, evolve. But 3.14, we're going to have to wait and see just a little while longer, at least for the live client. So it's going to be interesting to see how far CIG goes with this. I would be very, if it were me, I would be very cautious, and I would kind of let things kind of evolve very slowly. Because obviously you can't make these huge changes immediately. You have to kind of think about them. But once again, we'll have to wait and see what CIG does. Now, for today's episode, I chose this footage in particular for a reason. And you're going to see why in a little while. Long story short, this mission doesn't work. It's broken. And even though I neutralize the target that I'm supposed to neutralize, I don't get paid out for it. And while I'm sitting there and I'm trying to think, oh, did I miss the guy? Is he about to, actually spawn in? Did I just happen to spawn into a bunch of Crusader security, Hurston security in this case? I don't know. While all this is going on, another player jumps in and attacks me. And this is often seen as a negative thing in Star Citizen. There's a lot of people out there who have profoundly negative feelings in regards to these sorts of events in Star Citizen. And I think that, especially just given what we have just talked about, that it is important to not always try to evade these events. There's something to be learned from being smart, being quick, being the rabbit, being able to escape the predator. And there's a lot of important things that you can learn from that. But what is equally important is, engaging with the event. Not viewing it as like a monster on a hill or in a castle to be avoided, but willfully going after that situation. And pursuing it and when it comes to you, letting it happen and looking at it not as a negative social or online interaction, but to look at it as like, I now get to open up this box and to see what's inside of the box. And that is, it's an important thing. It's an important thing to experience, because in that event, you pick up on things, especially if you record the footage. Recording the footage is so invaluable for later analysis. But as you interact with these events, even as I'm watching this footage now, I can see mistakes, and I can see, this, this is that, and that is this, and you know what I got to do? I got to fix that keybind, or, that went well, these weapons are good for this, that sort of thing. But when you kind of engage with these events, and not, from a point of view of like it's automatically negative, but when you just willfully kind of just say, I'm just gonna let this situation take me away, and I'm gonna use this as a chance to explore different ideas as to what works, what doesn't work. When you do that, and you willingly do that, and this is the period in Star Citizen's development where you absolutely want to be doing this as much as possible, I totally understand why, people say, I get crime stat just so I can get attacked by people in PvP, because I want to PvP. I want to learn how to defend myself at the very least. I want to learn how to evade enemies at the very least, that sort of thing. When you start to unpack these events, you don't just automatically categorize them as negative, you learn a lot of things. And you learn not just how you react to situations and how you can improve that, but how enemies react to you, and how do they generally move? How does the predator move? How does the predator walk? How does it stalk? That sort of thing. It's important stuff that you should really try to interact with as much as possible. It's very, and in a way, it kind of breaks up the monotony of gameplay, because while we're always kind of arguing for more content, and of course we'll get into that in a little bit, realistically right now the best thing to do is to kind of, we are in a situation where nothing counts yet. There's nothing that's really truly important right now, but we get to evolve with the game, and this kind of experience is going to make us much better players in the future. Like if you're Johnny, I bought a game package and I'm not going to go until the game is live. If you're that person's going to step into Star Citizen, they're going to be like, I'm on the internet, I'm in danger, that sort of thing. And they're not going to know how anything works. Whereas you, even if you're like quote unquote bad at PvP, or you're a bad pilot or whatnot, you're going to be light years ahead of that guy. You're going to be in a place where you know where everything is. You know where to find your weapons. You know how to manage your ship, your power systems, and all of that. And if you can allow yourself to evolve with the game in a very gradual level, you can get comfortable with these things. It's sort of like if you were to play a traditional MMO through a whole bunch of expansions from the very beginning, and you were to compare that experience to the player who, basically joins the game late in the game's life cycle, and then, just kind of goes like, okay, let me watch a YouTube video, boosts the character and max, watches a YouTube video and goes, how do I play this? You're going to be light years ahead of that guy, even if you're not the best player. So when these events occur, it's important to engage with them. Now, recently, I did a video where I was using this footage here out in the desert, and I was talking about like a Dune-esque survival mission on foot. And I thought about doing a follow-up video talking about like, what if you did something where you had to take a vehicle over, hundreds of kilometers, and it would be like a multiplayer thing, and you would have to defend yourself and that sort of stuff. But some people might look at these types of situations and say, it's not a finished game. Why do you want content? Why do you want, all these different types of missions? And the reason behind that is that, so often with traditional MMOs, we don't get to interact with the content until the content has already been decided upon, before the company has committed resources, designed the whole system more or less top to bottom, and just said this is the way it's going to be. And when we interact with things at this early stage in development as a community, we are going to be voting things up. Like, we're going to be saying we really like this, whereas this we don't really like all that much. And that kind of shapes the direction that game developers go in. And it's one of the big reasons why certainly a game like World of Warcraft is, well, it's not the only reason, especially lately. Things have gotten in that area. Things have gotten very, very dark over the last few days. I might make a video about that in the future, but suffice it to say, I've actually completely quit playing WoW. But to get back on track, when we get to interact with this content before it's decided upon, we can shape the direction that developers want to go. Now, not all content is going to appeal to all users. Like, one person might say more mining, more depth, and the other person would say, oh my God, that's the worst job. I can't imagine wanting to do that. But as we kind of iterate through all these different ways for players to kind of enjoy the game, different facets, we can kind of look at the ideas that are working, the ideas that are not working. And so we can have a very big impact on making sure that Star Citizen arrives as a finished product with a little something for everyone that is equally as enjoyable and rewarding. Even I showcased a bit of the New World recently, and that is a game that I'm still very much enjoying. And there are certain things about it that I'm not all that keen on, but once again, we're in a closed beta, so everything's more or less largely set in stone for a release. But being in Star Citizen, we're so much ahead of that. We're so far before any of that is set in stone that we can actually shape those ideas. And that's kind of one of the good things about being where we are in Star Citizen. If you want to look at the silver lining, if you want to look at the bright side, because there are negative sides too, and I'm not downplaying that at all, but is that we get to shape these things before they become a system that we just find altogether boring or just entirely lackluster. So in 3.14, of course, we're going to get these new types of content. Different missions, Jumptown 2.0, all of that sort of stuff. And, well, I think Jumptown 2.0 is technically off in the future a little bit, but immediately we're going to get the Crusader Station and, of course, the return of, Xenothreat. That sort of stuff. And it's going to be important to interact with this stuff. And when CIG hits the nail on the head, encourage that. Definitely encourage that and just say, yeah, this is good. This is fun content. I enjoy it. More like this, more like this. Because the alternative, of course, is that, the game releases, you've never said anything. So you're like, oh, I'm just fine with whatever they do. You end up with a bunch of systems you don't like, and then you turn around and complain, which is like, well, you're really useful now, sitting there whining on the forums when all this stuff was being developed and you never said a thing. So something, whenever we get new content, try it. When it's bad, it's bad, and just don't be afraid to say it. But when it's good and when they're heading in the right direction, or you're thinking, hey, this is this is pretty good, but what if you also added this, and what if you did that? That's where you want to be. That's the kind of commentary you want to be leaving for CIG, and you want to leave your commentary. Because the alternative is you're just getting swept away with the river rather than possibly influencing slightly the direction that the river is going to go. Anyways, that's the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.